This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about democracy, the deep state, and trust. I believe that there is a close link between democracy and trust, and facts and truth. Democracy without trust doesn't work. It's not democracy. It's autocracy, is oligarchy, is can be many things. I mean, that's it. It's not democracy because we need to separate two things. One is democracy. Another is a representative politics, let's put it this way, because it's not democracy actually. Okay, representative democracy, at least as I think that's a worldwide phenomena that it doesn't work. And it doesn't work, why? Because our representatives, the politicians, the governments that are supposed to represent us, can get away with lies, can break the trust bonds that they should have with us. They should feel obliged morally, but also by law, to the voters. They should be accountable to the voters, to the citizens, but they are not. And they can break their promises. We don't even expect them to fulfill them because it has been normalized. We can feel upset with it, delusioned. Sorry, I cannot spell this word properly. I mean, we can feel a lot of things about that, but powerlessness, disempowered, or becoming, giving our backs to politics, and that's absolutely normal. What is the deep state? And why can we not have democracy and the deep state? The deep state is the power of money, the power of dark money, the power of shadow banking, the power of finance capital. It means the power of oligarchs, plutocrats, crime, organized crime, big everything. The industrial, the military industrial complex, and all the rest of the corporations and the fire sector, finance and insurance and real estate, and also the permanent bureaucracy, which includes the permanent bureaucracy, also includes the non-profit industrial complex. Okay, the non-profit industrial complex is part of the permanent bureaucracy. It has become part of the permanent bureaucracy that is used for imperial enterprises it's one of the branches for the hegemonic, the US hegemony. Doesn't mean that other countries don't have the same problems, that these other big powers don't have also connections with this world and blah blah, but it's not as nothing could compare over the last century from the transition of power to the UK, the United Kingdom, British Empire, to the American Empire. There's nothing that has compared with the power, the wealth with the United States of America. So this, if we do not, so when we talk about democracy and people and certain parties, especially these populist parties, right-wing, populist, nationalist, fascistic parties, some of them are fascistic parties or neo-Nazi parties even. But even if they are not fascists, they might tell you stories about the deep state, okay? They might tell you, like the liberal parties or the social democratic parties, they tell you stories, and then when they get to power, they do not change anything, or whatever change they promote is just to keep the things the same, just to keep in power. And when we talk about keeping, do not change, having systemic change, it's because the ones that are controlled, I mean the part of the iceberg power that is underneath is very powerful and dominates the power that is the iceberg, that the part of the iceberg that is above, which is the institutions that represent power, okay? The ones we believe that are democratic, is it, or we believe or we do not believe it anymore. But what we have now in the Western countries, and basically the countries that are part of the G7 and some other countries, Anglophone countries, you know, all the countries that we can say that are influenced by under the American empire umbrella, as supposedly allies. We are not allies, but we are just vassal states with different degrees of obligations, let's put it this way, but nevertheless we are not allies, not exactly what the word ally means, which should be that we would have the same level of in a relation, the same level of power, which we have not. So democracy is not possible to exist in these conditions, and these conditions have been since long ago, but at least since the end of the Second World War, that slowly they started. But then after the 70s and the rise of neoliberalism, they just went, you know, they just accelerated. So We cannot, without trust, we cannot democracy. But if we trust the parties that are now, it doesn't matter in the countries that basically we have a duopoly, like in England or in Australia or the United States, in many other countries where basically they make sure that there is only two parties. Even there are other parties, they make sure they are irrelevant. They stay irrelevant. So people do not give, enough people do not see, cannot understand or cannot figure out that the right-wing parties, even the ones that are not getting money from the deep state entities, okay, from whoever represents wealth, which they do actually, most of them, of course, because they don't represent a danger, and that's what people seem to not understand. These guys, it doesn't matter what they say. They don't want. What they want for a society does not represent the working class. Okay, their interests and their vision of a society and a civilization has nothing to do with the well-being of people. For them, the wealthy, the big money, the rights of the private property, and everything else, they want to preserve it, but they want to tell you a story that they want to clean, to kind of get rid of corruption. They always emphasize that they want to fight corruption, and everybody wants to fight corruption, okay? And everyone have to have a sane society. Nobody wants a society, a degenerated society, okay? The people, the normal citizenry, do not want a generated society. We want a healthy society in every in every meaning of the word healthy society. But these parties, and they are diverse, they represent even different forces in society, so they are not exactly, they do not form a single block. They have differences between them, from the conservatives to the nationalists to the populists and to the ones that are really fascistic. There are differences, okay? I do not put them, all of them, in the same box, but for the purpose of if they tell you, or they tell us stories about the deep state, and if you believe they are going to clean it, I mean, it's not what they are going to do. And then they just become, no, they are not always liars and the other ones, because they will, of course, they even make changes that in the beginning they will look like that will be good for all of us. But slowly it will emerge who they are really, whose rights and interests they are really defending. They can implement some measures, some political measures that will, because they are more determined to do it, that we might see changes that for more conservative side of society, they will be happy with it. But in terms of being a threat to the deep state, they are not. They are not a threat to the deep state and the permanent bureaucracy, okay? That's why if you buy into this Elon Musk, Dodge and USD and this, they are cleaning it and they are cutting the people that are doing, I mean, all this rubbish. This is rubbish. They are not doing anything because they are, you know, these new tech oligarchs, they are the new form of deep state. They are already part of the deep state. Their money, their influence, the deep state is exactly the ability of big money, you know, and as I said, it can be the influence of the organized crime, big money, big corporations, okay, the permanent bureaucracy, like the CIA and many other agencies and other forms of bureaucracy and technocracy that exist in society, and they because they are permanent, they are very difficult to challenge in democratic terms. That's why they need to be accountable. We cannot just allow them as they did, to allow them to become more powerful, to be a shadow government. Because they represent the shadow government, like shadow banking, and all that. That's what we need to understand. That's what we need to fight collectively. That's the point. That's exactly the point. If we do not challenge these, we are not going to change anything. Whatever reforms we do, they are going to be meaningless, because this is not about. There are many people talking about. Many people talk about regulation, you know, but don't we understand that regulation does not work because of many reasons? And one of the reasons is because regulation, it's always kind of behind, you know. Because they always the regulatory system we have in place. Even think about the Moody's and all the rating agencies that what is the purpose of them? If they rate, okay, if the rates they gave are not accurate, and they are not accurate on purpose, okay, so the buyers of financial assets cannot trust those ratings that are supposed to be given by firms that should be responsible, because that should be their role. And the regulatory, I mean, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work because only one reason. Because these people have too much power. Whoever is part, whatever organizations and individuals and families and institutions and whatever is influenced is part of the deep state, which is deep politics. So they can dictate and influence politics, and dictate the politics behind the scenes, you know, without the need of going through elections or anything else. So they are the ones that have the real power, and they have many forms of influencing how politics are shaped, which means they can do it with bribery, with money. They have a lot of, they have even threats, okay? So there are many ways. If they have that power to do it, we cannot have democracy. It's just as simple as that. Because democracy is about trust. It's about an open system. It's not about secrecy. Whatever they tell us that there is the need for secrecy, it is a lie. We don't need secrecy, and it would be for all of us. That they would have a much open system. In military terms, in financial and economic terms. Because then we could really understand how things are done. The reason they want secrecy, because it's a class problem. Okay? It's a class issue. It's about having an edge against us. If they know what we cannot know, because we are too stupid to know, they have always an edge on us. And then this is not democracy. This cannot be democracy, because democracy is just about going there and putting a vote that in the end doesn't change anything. And then it just makes it that many people cannot stand liberalism anymore, liberal democracies and but people still believe that capitalism is the right system. They don't understand that capitalism is part of the problem. That's another layer that so many people do not understand also, that the reason we have these deep states and everything else is because of capitalism. It's because why? Because capitalism is about maximizing profit, is about accumulation of wealth, is about expansion. That means imperialism. Any form of imperialism, soft or hard imperialism. And it's about also over proprietary rights, private property rights, which means that capitalism allows people, firms, corporations, families to concentrate as much or accumulate as much wealth and private property in many forms, capital in many forms, and assets as well. So it has no limits. This is capitalism. Don't you understand that capitalism that is not about free markets? It's not about an economy, a functional economy, because actually in many things capitalism is not a functional economy, and by the way it doesn't allow also a functional democracy, because it requires manufactured scarcity. So all these layers that we need to understand, that the right-wing populism and nationalism, and even only the conservatives, which I have nothing against. There are some values and principles that I even agree with them. I'm not going to talk about it now. But there is nothing wrong with several conservative values, and you need to have a society that have a balance between conservative and progressive values and principles, because we have different perspectives, and even if we change throughout life, from being more progressive to being more conservative and vice versa. Therefore, we need to have a society that has a balance, in order to avoid polarization. But the problem is that the cultural polarization is not artificial, but is artificialized. It is propped artificially in order to make us focus in the wrong, being our outrage coming from what is not the real problems, the real threats for democracy, and the real threats for war, and that's why we need a left, a radical left, okay, not the left, I mean, not the supposedly left that is not left at all, like the social democrats and the center left parties, but not exactly based on liberal progressive values. Not because liberal, again, like conservatism, there are liberal values and the progressive values that are very important. Of course, that's not the point. The point is that we have a system subservient to, in this case, in the present case, to neoliberalism, which is financial capitalism, that is with all the connections with the deep state. Of course, the deep state is very diverse. There are many diverse influences. They doesn't mean that the deep state is an homogeneous group of people. That is a kind of a cabal. There are different influences from different, totally not related strata of society, from big corporations, big money, as I said, the permanent bureaucracy, the organized crime, and many other, even the church, and so, I mean, it's a club, it's a big club, but it's not exactly that we do not have competing groups inside it. They are not just only one, but they are two parts. The point is, it doesn't matter if they are unified or not, because actually I believe they do not represent a unit, but they do have power. They have the power to dictate, to change. Even imagine that that's why they do not want. That's why they demonize everything that's left. The reason they hate communism is because they know that communists and real socialists, real left parties, parties that understand the relevance of class consciousness and class wars. They do not. The reason they hate these parties and these people, and they will do whatever it's possible. I mean, they will use every tool of the toolbox to destroy these parties, to keep them away from power. That's why they demonize all the nations. because they know they are the only ones that represent a threat for their control of power. They are the only ones that represent the threat to the oligarchy and plutocracy, to the plutocrats and oligarchs. That's the reason that we are kind of again in the situation, not the same. It is history doesn't repeat itself, but it just kind of we find ourselves in similar situations, and it is kind of exactly where we are right now. That. But we don't have a left now. There was a very important left movement between the two wars, and even before the first war. And those two wars are also related with that class consciousness, with the power, the working class was very much more aware than far away, much more aware of much more the strong class consciousness. They knew a thing or two about exploitation, and they knew there was the need for a better society, a more equal society. And now we don't have it. We have weak left movements. There is no organization. The left, the radical left, is not organized. I mean, there are still some parties and some organizations. Of course, they exist, but they are small. They are not very influential. And for many people, they just believe, they do not understand they are being manipulated to think that it's anachronic, this is a failed system, communism doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. They do not want to know why exactly has communism not worked. I mean, why? I mean, there is a lot of things to discuss. There is a lot of to analyze. How can we organize a society? It might not be. It doesn't mean that you are a communist or a socialist, that you want to replicate the Soviet Union. Okay, but you can learn. It was a lot of achievements. Whatever you think about the system. Like there was a lot of achievements with capitalism. Okay? We can study. We can have these case studies and understand them. And understand how can we move on to a society that really works for all of us. Not a fake democracy, a managed democracy. And because it is managed by people that are not accountable to us, that's why they can lie, they can betray us, and nothing happens. And then another election cycle comes, and we are going back to the same, we are just we are just deceived again. And then we turn right, as if the right is going to pose a threat to the establishment, to the big banks, which, I mean, and by the way, if we want to understand how society works and why we have all the problems, we need to understand money. banking, the financial system, the monetary system, the fiscal system, the macroeconomics. Otherwise, I'm sorry, but we can never understand capitalism. What capitalism is about. This is not about free markets. Markets are rigged. Capitalists look for monopolies. Inequality is a feature. Crises are also a feature of capitalism. These boom and bust cycles it's a part of the financial capitalism. The casino, the rentier. That's why some talk about techno-feudalism, because that's like Michael Hudson doesn't talk really about techno-feudalism. Yanis Varoufakis talks a lot about techno-feudalism and others. But Michael Hudson has really deep understanding of rentier capitalism and what's the problems with it. And that's why we cannot have democracy. Because this is what capitalists do to democracy and to the economy after that's why I don't know what's going to be with China. You know why? Because now China is in that phase of development where people and workers and the society in general want to achieve a better life. They believe in the system. They are trying to better their lives, to create a future for their children. You know, like any capitalist society, they are not behaving as communists. They are behaving as capitalists. Okay? But what's going to happen in the future? When that society matures, achieves a point where it's not possible to grow. I mean, you know, you can always build more infrastructure. You can always expand some parts of the economy. But there is a point where you cannot grow at the same rate as before. So that's why even a capitalist, since the economy needs to grow, what does happen? What happens is then the financial capitalism takes over and financializes the economy to replace the growth, not the industrial growth, with financial growth, with fake growth. And the real economy just is dumped. It stops growing. Not because the economy, the GDP can grow, but the real economy doesn't grow, and the real wages don't grow; they decrease. And it can happen in China too. If there is no if the political will is not there to really make sure that it doesn't happen. But that's the nature of capitalism. That is something we should really understand. And that's the reason why democracy doesn't work, cannot work. Because they cannot allow us to understand how the system really works, to start with. They do not want, they talk about democracy and free speech, and all that stuff that we are supposed to enjoy. But if we are not allowed, in the sense that by omission, by framing it in the ways they frame it, we do not analyze the reality of our economies, how they really work, how money really functions, what money is and everything, in order that we can understand our economy and society, the capitalist economy and society, the way we need, in order to have an economy that works for all of us, for a better society, and not just an economy to enrich the people that already have a lot of money. And not a lot of money. They control a lot of assets. Because if they could have the money, but they could not use it to take control of real assets, oh, that would be enough. Money is nothing. Money is a tool. Money is an instrument to allow you to control real people, real assets, territory, economies, countries, politics, and everything else. That's why they want to have the control of that tool. That's why the Americans believe that they could control the world through economic and financial terrorism, okay? And military power. That was what the Americans have been practicing, and the Europeans. Yeah. But they make sure that we do not understand it, the roots of the problems, and they blame the communists, and they blame the workers. They blame the state all the time, the governments, and this and that. But if you want to really understand, you think the governments, yeah, they really suck. But they suck why? Are they governing on behalf of whom? They have been governing on behalf of them to make sure that they can enjoy the legislation that is favorable to them. Tax cuts, tax havens, special economic zones, shadow banking. All the financial instruments and financial engineering and all the stuff that they can use, that is, it's almost impossible to understand. Because they make sure that that those things are very complex and very confusing, in order that people do not even want to understand them. But we should understand them, at least the basics, that to have a picture of the system, to understand how rigged the system is against us by the same guys that want to save us, they tell us. So that's why we cannot trust the right-wing parties, not because they do not have values, certain values, or certain policies that might not be correct, okay? The problem is they are not going to challenge the system because they believe in the system. And we have systemic problems that have nothing to do with the culture wars, or the immigration, because already immigration is a symptom is not a problem. It is a symptom created by this system, by the powers that be, by the wars, by the economic terrorism and financial terrorism that they have been, and the military, and all the neo-colonial policies they have been implementing for so many decades, and the invasions and the coup d'etats, regime change operations, false flag operation. I mean, you name it. And they have, they are not going to I mean, this is the real reason. It's capitalism. That breeds this. Because capitalism is people, is not only people. We have to understand that capitalism is an ideology, but we have to understand capitalism as an ideology that is used for the benefit, for purposes, for real purposes, by real people. And so, I think it's stupid to believe that the solutions will come from the right, not because, again, the right might not have good ideas, but because the right party, the right-wing parties, the far-right parties, it doesn't matter how radical they are, they don't put a threat to the same system that is the roots of the systemic roots of our problems. At domestic level, in our countries, the Western countries, and many other countries around the world in the so-called global South. It didn't start yesterday. It started at least since the 16th century with the so-called age of discoveries. So we cannot just I mean, if we allow again to fall for right-wing extremism, we will get what we deserve. We are going to find ourselves in some form of fascism. And I do not know, I mean, because these guys can even tell us stories about that they do not want to go to war. They want to end the war in Ukraine, but they I mean, most of them, they do not touch the Jewish problem. There is not a Jewish problem these days. The Zionist apartheid system that is destroying a people, annihilating a people, seems to be not a problem for so many people on the right side of this political spectrum. And also the so-called left, which is not left at all. They are not left. The supposedly center left, liberals and progressives and social democrats, these people are not left, because all the values, the left values, the progressive values that they once sponsored, they once defended, the people that are in their ranks are neoliberals by the most part. Green parties and everything else. So even in the case of war, they might use this just to please the ones that are against the war, you know, that just want the war to stop, that they can see the madness to prepare for war against Russia, which is absolute madness, lunacy, and and okay, they say so they just because it's the liberals and I mean it's the but are they is Meloni against the war? I mean, are they? I mean, do you think Macron is a liberal or is a right wing? I mean, because these people it's a very slippery. You know, we cannot just attach these liberals. Okay, this kind of liberalism is liberal. They are I call them lib fascists. Yes. Many of them are not, just have a façade, you know, a liberal façade. They are not liberal, they are fascists. They will show their fascist core whenever it fits. So I'm afraid that we do not really understand. We are not getting it. We are not getting that by having societies as we have now, that basically have such a small percentage of the population that understands the left values. What are they really about? I'm not talking about communism and socialism and blah. I'm talking about left values. I'm talking about the issues of social justice, issues of class war, of a classless society, issues of having a civilization, an ecologicalistic civilization that go beyond. These are left values. I'm not talking about that. I do not want to have a label, Marxist, communist, socialist, this and that. No, it's about defining the values and principles for the civilization humanity needs, not a particular country, but the civilization for the future of humanity, and for the humanity to have a future. Not only that includes the problems that we have, but has to go beyond those problems that we need to understand in a more broader, comprehensive way. And that's what I try to do with these talks or monologues or whatever, reflections, that I try my best to also give my testimony as a human being, as a citizen. I don't care. I don't have titles, but I have a mind. I can think for myself, and I'm open to debate. And then whenever I'm confronted with that I'm wrong or mistaken, I change. I don't feel shame to be wrong. I don't feel I don't feel I'm insulted when people do not agree with me, because it's not about me. It's about the ideas, the principles, the values. It's about debunking narratives that are mainly deceptive, because they are designed for perception manipulation to manufacture consent. They are not tailored to free us, but the opposite. And I don't care where they come from. I don't care from left or right or center. I don't care where they come from. But I also do not need to agree 100% with a person to share or to listen, to share their knowledge, to listen to them. Because that's how I grow my understanding. That's how I try to be more factual, more intellectual, try to be intellectually honest. And to have a more comprehensive understanding, which is a process, as we all know. This is not about achieving anything. It's not about a goal. It's about a process that will never end. We always have to be alert. We don't have to build a system and that's it. We need to have a culture that is alert, that people are educated to avoid, to allow, to block other people or groups or organizations to take over society and put other ones serving them. That has been the problem. That is the problem we have to solve. This is the problem we need to solve. Basically, it's not allowing psychopaths and sociopaths and opportunists and people, megalomans and all these people that are the ones that actually end up controlling society. How can we have a society, a dynamic society that understands, that builds a culture that makes people to be alert, the institutions, organizations, and individual citizens, to avoid concentration of power and wealth, concentration of the narratives. They're able to build narratives to tell us what's good for us instead of us collectively decide us. Because that's about trust, but trust needs truth and justice. Trust, justice, and truth. Democracy cannot exist without that. It's just as simple as that. And we have to fight for it, for a civilization and a society that is structured around it, organized around it. Otherwise, we will be always screwed and be transformed in useful idiots, cannon fodder, disposable peons, and that's not how we can live lives with dignity and build meaning, real meaning for our individual lives and for the collective well-being of humanity and nature. Okay, I will end it here. Thanks for listening. I will be back soon.